I've seen about 50 students up till now. It has been enrolled. So we have little time. We can discuss if some of the students have any question regarding my last lecture of thyroid. So do you have any questions regarding the last lecture, or should I start with the thyroid neoplasm? Because we have little time now. We can discuss it now. And this thyroid neoplasm is not a big lecture as it was, day before yesterday. So we have time if you want to discuss. I think there is no question from the student side, or you want to discuss anything else regarding the block, because now almost it is the last week. Next week we have only CPC on Sunday and nothing else. So in CPC, definitely we'll be discussing the previous cases. Probably that will help you in your exam. Yes, anybody?
And Doctor, is it possible to share the slides with the students before the lecture
Ah,
because I
oh,
want to take
sorry.
notes?
Okay, 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 please. Hold on. So, can you hear me?
Yes, Doctor.
Okay, so we are going to start now. And I have actually uploaded this lecture in Moodle. So you can open my lecture from the Moodle and you can be with me. Okay, so today we will be discussing thyroid neoplasm. Last time we have discussed all the non-neoplastic condition like hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism, inflammatory conditions, and also we have discussed the Graves' disease, which is really one of the important one. And just to recall that uh, in hyperthyroidism, if it is grave disease, so you had to have exophthalmos, right? The eye changes, the eyeball comes out, right? But if you have hyperthyroidism and you don't see eye changes, means exophthalmos, then probably it is not grave disease, because usually what happens that in grave disease, because of the antibody which strikes the eyeball and causes multiple different changes, as we have mentioned already, I'm not going to go in detail. So in grave disease, you always see exophthalmos, right? Staring lobe, lid lag, everything. But if the hyperthyroidism is because of the solitary nodule, which is adenoma, or because of the multinodular goiter, one of the uh, area become hyperactive and it shows in thyroid scan, you see a hot area. So that will never produce exophthalmos, remember. Okay. So regarding neoplasm, uh, definitely as other in other organs, thyroid also has neoplasm. Most are present as a nodule. So you can see thyroid neoplasm as a nodule. It could be small or it could be large. Again, it could be benign and it could be malignant. So nodule is common in thyroid. It is 4 times more common in female than as compared to male. Uh, Especially the solitary nodules are mostly benign, but you know it is 10 is to 1 ratio. If you see solitary nodule, it is 10 times benign, but there is a chance of becoming malignant. So 1 is 10 is to 1 is the ratio for benign and malignant. Thyroid carcinoma is not that much common. For example, if you see cases, it's not so much common to see malignancy in thyroid. But if you have malignancy in thyroid, 90% has a very good prognosis. So if you just see this incidence, for example, if I have a solitary nodule which is in the ratio of 10:1, means 10 times it's common. And then if you see carcinoma, 90% has a better prognosis. Means out of 10, 1 is carcinoma, and out of 1, 90% has a better prognosis. Means if you divide into 100, only 1% chance that the thyroid cancer has a bad prognosis. Radiation history is always there with the thyroid neoplasm, especially the malignant tumors. Now, if you see this pie chart, the incidence of thyroid carcinoma versus adenoma, you can see that adenoma usually occupy more than 90% of the area, and the carcinoma is only 10%. And among this 10%, the prognosis of the malignancy is 90% good. 5 years or 10 year survival rate is very good. So they usually say that the patient usually does not die of thyroid cancer if it is papillary and follicular, which are more common, right? But the other two, yes, they are lethal one if somebody had that. So suppose if you see a solitary nodule in a patient, what will you do? Hmm? The best way is to do FNAC to evaluate that. For example, if she is a young female and having a nodule, definitely the malignancy appears little later. But in a younger patient, usually you see there are multiple different reasons of developing nodule. For example, if you start with adenoma, right, or a small nodule, what will you do? You do FNAC. What is FNAC? Is a fine needle aspiration cytology. So you ask the patient to lie down, and for example, the nodule is about 2 centimeter big. So, and you know that thyroid is present in front of the neck, and it is very much mobile. So what you do is first to fix that nodule with your 2 fingers, as it's shown in the picture. So this man, this doctor has actually, this is a nodule. So the doctor has tried to fix that nodule between the 2 fingers, and then he put a needle on it. So he has just put a needle. You can even use a syringe with the needle, so that if the and you all know that thyroid is a very vascular organ. So as you put the needle, a material will come out and appears in the hub. So this is hub of the needle. This area is called hub, which is bluish in color. So it will change the color to red, right, or brown. So this will show that the material is coming out. So you can put a syringe on it, and you can pull as much as you want, and then you have to spread that material on a slide. And as you spread the material on a slide, you put that in a alcohol to fix it urgently, because you don't have to dry that slide, because if it is dried, then the morphology will be changed. So after doing your FNAC, this is non-invasive procedure. You can do even in your lab and your clinic. You don't have to book for operation theater. No, it's a absolutely non-invasive procedure, and patient can come in and you can take the samples. Then you go for staining and do H&E stain for this material on a slide, and you see something like that. So this is FNA. If you see such a slide in which you see a lot of inflammatory cells, you can see lymphoid follicle, right? For example, this is lymphoid follicle. These are a lot of inflammatory cells. These are some thyroid follicles. So if you see such a picture, you must go towards the inflammatory condition, thyroiditis, anything, right? So it could be Hashimoto thyroiditis and other type of thyroiditis. So while looking at it, you make your diagnosis and then you start your treatment. You don't have to take out the thyroid gland. But if you see follicles only having collide in it, or if you see such picture like very bizarre type of nuclei, you can see mitotic figure. Although uh, this is not a criteria of malignancy, remember, in thyroid gland. We will show you what is the criteria of malignancy. Even if it is so bland like this one, thyroid follicles filled with colloid, you had to take out the portion of the thyroid, which is, for example, a nodule 2 centimeter. So you have to take out that 2 centimeter nodule, right? To confirm whether it's a benign or malignant, because the criteria of malignancy is not the nuclear feature, but vascular invasion, capsular invasion, and there are many other we will just going to discuss. So you have to take it out, and then you have to confirm it whether the follicles are present in the capsule or not, or it is going passing through the capsule. Then you can call it follicular carcinoma, right? If they are you see a vascular invasion or if you see a capsular invasion. So it's very important. You cannot leave a nodule of a thyroid like that. Okay, so adenoma, starting with the adenoma, it's a common one, as we said. Most of the patient are euthyroid. Euthyroid means there is no abnormality of the, no hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism. Usually, we just see a nodulate and then a nodule in it, and it's adenoma. But some of the adenomas, they are show hyperthyroidism, hyperactive one. So if you do the scan, you will see a hot area. That 2 centimeter nodule will be, iodine will be uptake. So if you give a radioactive iodine, it will uptake. So that's called hot nodule. But if it doesn't mean it's a cold nodule. So if it is hot nodule, means it is an active adenoma, and it is secreting uh, thyroid hormone. So you have to treat accordingly, right? I mean, if it is cold nodule and the TSH and T4 level are normal, so you simply take out that nodule and then you send for histopathology. Now that nodule should be taken out, and not only the nodule but also the surrounding structure of the thyroid, so that a normal amount of thyroid should come out with the nodule, so that if suppose god forbid if the patient had a cancer, so you have to take out all the margins. You should not leave any residual tumor behind. Okay. Now, for example, this is thyroid adenoma. Uh, uh, Probably it is almost 2 centimeter or 2.5 centimeter, and it has a very well circumscribed nodule with the capsule around. So capsulation is a diagnostic point for adenoma. And what is this capsule? Basically, how this capsule is formed when the benign lesion start proliferating the nodule, and it try to increase in size. It pushes the normal thyroid tissue apart, right? And as it pushes, it compresses the thyroid tissue and make a pseudo capsule or false capsule around it, as you see here. So basically, it is the compression of the surrounding thyroid follicles which are compressed now, and they form a false capsule around it. And if you see here, you can see brownish area, which is follicles filled with thyroid or thyroglobulin. And this blackish area, which you see here, this one, this is all hemorrhage. So hemorrhage is common because it's a very vascular tumor. So you can see hemorrhage here. You can see a brownish area. Probably this is having follicles with filled with colloid. This is another picture of thyroid adenoma. So this is a normal looking thyroid, and this is a very much encapsulated lesion. You can see a capsule around this adenoma, and this is basically inside this capsule is a adenoma. So if you see under microscope, you see multiple follicles. uh, you can even count it, and they are filled with colloid. So sometimes it looks very normal, but the difference is that it is encircled between the capsule. So here is this another picture in which you can see some of the follicles which are filled with colloid. For example, this one, this one, this one, and on the right side, this is the capsule. So it's very important to see the capsule of the thyroid. Without looking at the capsule, you cannot see whether it's benign or malignant. But if you, in this picture, you can see On the left side, these are all thyroid follicles. Some of them are having colloid, some are without colloid, but very bland, and they are not infiltrating into the capsule. No capsular invasion is seen, right? This is another one. This is a very good picture because this is a capsule here, this full capsule, and this is thyroid, which is adenoma. You can see back-to-back arrangement of the thyroid follicles. Some of the follicles can see colloid in it, but majority here in this adenoma, majority of the follicles are without colloid. This is a capsule, and these are actually the compressed follicles, and this capsule is basically formed by pushing the normal thyroid tissue, and you can easily identify compression. This is a normal looking thyroid outside this capsule. So this is absolutely normal looking thyroid. So normal looking thyroid is separated by this capsule by adenoma. So this is adenoma, this is a normal looking thyroid, and the capsule is separating. And you cannot see any capsular invasion in this one. So you can easily say that this is a benign follicular adenoma of the thyroid. Now, sometimes it happens, there are different variants of adenoma. For example, if you see this one, this is called Hurdle cell, although these are all follicle, thyroid follicle. But the difference is that this is suppose one follicle, and you see the cells are round, but the cytoplasm is eosinophilic granular cytoplasm. And these are basically a Hurdle cell. You remember Hashimoto thyroiditis, in which we were discussing Hurdle cell. It's the same Hurdle cell, but this is not Hashimoto, because Hashimoto thyroiditis has um, a large amount of inflammatory cells, right? And you had to have uh, lymphoid follicles in that one. And then along with that, if you see Hurdle cell, then you call it Hashimoto. Here, there is no inflammatory cells, absolutely clean one, but the thyroid follicles are arranged side by side, but the lining epithelium has rounded nuclei and abundant granular eosinophilic cytoplasm. So these are called Hurdle cell adenoma, right? This is another variant of follicular adenoma. Now, this is a slide, and if you clearly see that there are a lot of nuclei which show pleomorphism and hyperchromasia. Here, this one, this one, and probably you might see some of the mitosis. For example, uh, uh, this one looks like a mitotic figure. So if you see atypical cell, which is, and you know what is atypical cell means, that there'll be irregular uh, pleomorphic nuclei. So you call it atypical cell, having some of hyperchromasia in it and some of the mitotic figure. So this atypia or mitosis is not a criteria of malignancy in thyroid. Remember, you can put this thing in a red mark, that if you see atypia or if you see pleomorphism hyperchromasia as in other tumor, in thyroid lesions or most of the endocrine lesion, this is not a criteria. The criteria of malignancy in follicular adenoma to become a carcinoma is vascular and capsular invasion. So if capsule is normal and it is not invading into the capsule, no matter they have a ATP of the morphological structure is different, don't call it malignant. It is just an adenoma, nothing else. Okay, if it is thyroid adenoma, what you will do? You have to take it out. Why? Even if it is benign, because to confirm it, you had to see the capsule of the tumor. And you have to see the whole of the nodule, because maybe at one area you might see some of the capsular invasion. Well, one thing I must tell you here, that the difference between adenoma and carcinoma, one of the difference is carcinoma had a thick capsule and adenoma will be having a very thin, small capsule, right? Okay. Now, thyroid carcinoma, coming into the carcinoma of thyroid, We have four types of carcinoma. One is papillary thyroid carcinoma, follicular carcinoma, thyroid carcinoma, medullary carcinoma, and anaplastic carcinoma. So there are four thyroid carcinoma. And if you see this pie chart, the the largest amount or the highest number of tumor is in papillary carcinoma, which has 80% of the whole carcinomas, papillary carcinoma. The second number one is a follicular carcinoma, which is only 10% of it. The third one is a medullary carcinoma, which is 5%, and anaplastic carcinoma, which is less than 5%. So basically, in anaplastic carcinoma, they used to say that in anaplastic carcinoma, they have a history of 15 to 20 years before a patient had uh, mostly follicular carcinoma or sometimes papillary carcinoma, and these carcinoma are converted into anaplastic after a long time. Because once you take the tumor out, for example, if it is follicular malignant carcinoma, follicular carcinoma, you have taken out the whole thyroid, right? And then you have given the radiation and chemotherapy also, and then the patient is free from the tumor. Maybe after 20 years, the patient may develop a nodule of the thyroid. So it is said that this anaplastic carcinoma basically will show a history of previous follicular or papillary carcinoma. Medullary carcinoma is a different etiology. I'll let you know because it doesn't arise from the follicle of the thyroid. Medullary carcinoma usually arises from the C cells, which secrete calcitonin, right? You know about the histology of the thyroid. And I have also mentioned a little bit there. You have papillary and follicular carcinoma. Papillary is the highest ranked tumor, which is 80% of that. So we'll start with papillary carcinoma. Santosh, I'm in a lecture. I'll call you later. So papillary carcinoma, we'll start with papillary carcinoma. So before starting with papillary carcinoma, let's see the pathogenesis of these tumors and the mutations of the gene causing the tumor. So starting with papillary carcinoma. Now, if you see papillary carcinoma, it has a translocation and inversion of RET PTC gene. This is very important gene, and definitely PTC means papillary thyroid carcinoma. So RET PTC gene will be having a translocation or inversion. Plus, if you see down, the papillary carcinoma also have a point mutation of this BRAF gene. So it has been seen that normally majority of the tumor has only this RET PTC gene, but if RET PTC gene has BRAF gene also, point mutation of BRAF gene, then this papillary carcinoma had some adverse prognosis, right? Then we have follicular carcinoma. In follicular carcinoma, you have and plus anaplastic because both of them goes together side by side. As I said, that they have a history of previous follicular carcinoma 10, 20 years ago. So both of them, anaplastic and follicular carcinoma, has the same gene mutation. So they have a point mutation of KRAS gene, point mutation. You have uh, follic again point mutation and in follicular and anaplastic carcinoma with PTEN gene, and also you have a point mutation and amplification of PI3K, phosphatidyl inositol 3 kinase gene. So you have point mutation of KRAS gene, you have point mutation of PI3K gene, and also you have point mutation of PTEN gene. So this is for follicular carcinoma and anaplastic carcinoma. But for especially follicular carcinoma, not for anaplastic, there is also translocation of this PAX8 or PPARG gene, right? So you have translocation of PAX8 PPARG gene. It is specifically for follicular carcinoma. It's not for the anaplastic carcinoma. So you have to remember these gene mutation for these different tumors. So let's coming to the papillary carcinoma. For this is also called orphan NEI tumor. Why it is called orphan NEI, I'll let you know later on. You know that in papillary carcinoma, there is a translocation of RET-PTC gene. Remember RET-PTC gene. If it is only RET, it is medullary carcinoma. I had forgot to let you know about it, but for medullary carcinoma, it was only RET gene. For papillary carcinoma, it's RET and PTC gene. Remember. If you have BRAF gene along with the RET-PTC gene, then there is an adverse effect or adverse prognosis for this patient. They give you history of exposed to ionizing radiation, and often they affect a young woman. Remember, probably you were not even born in 1986. There was an incident happened in Chernobyl, Russia, where they had an atomic reactor in Chernobyl, and that was exploded. So they tried to evacuate the surrounding areas, but the people was residing around this Chernobyl atomic nuclear area. They were affected by this ionizing radiation, and those people after 15 to 20 years they start developing papillary carcinoma, or some of them develop follicular carcinoma. So they have a history of having ionizing radiation. They have a good prognosis, and 10-year survival rate is very good. 95% have 10 years. Usually they are well behaved. Seldomly they kill the people. So even they used to say that people, having a papillary carcinoma, follicular carcinoma, they have a very good prognosis. So the people are not killed by the tumor, but they are killed by some other reason, not by follicular carcinoma. There are only two carcinomas, which is anaplastic and medullary carcinoma, which had a bad prognosis and people die of that. Otherwise, these two are very good tumor. They have a nuclei that resemble orphan NEI. Now here, why they are called orphan NEI? When this tumor were actually discovered, there was a girl whose name was Annie, and she was blind and orphan. Orphan means her mother and father were died. So, and she was blind, and you all know that the blind, if you see a blind person, the cornea of the blind person, usually it is of white color, not of black. So they have given that ground glass appearance of the nuclei as an orphan NEI nuclei, right? That's why they call it orphan NEI tumor. And this tumor has pneuma bodies, and pneuma body, as while we were discussing the papillary uh, cyst adenocarcinoma of the ovary, there were also pneuma body. And what is pneuma body? When the papillary, because this is also papillary carcinoma, when the papillaries are being formed and it is growing in a high speed, what will happen? The tip of the papillary, it does not get a good blood supply, although they have a stock. For calling a papillary carcinoma, you had to have a stock, right? So they have a stock, but on the tip of the papillary, they don't get a good blood supply. So what happened? The tip of the papillary usually got necrosed, and when the necrosis occurs, calcification goes on in the tip, and it is called dystrophic calcification, and that appears as a rounded structure or bluish structure when you stain it with H&E. So this is pneuma body. This is a hallmark of papillary carcinoma, remember. So if you see pneuma body, you will think of papillary carcinoma along with the papillaries as well as uh, the nuclear structures also. And fortunately, this girl has a dog. Her name was Sandy, and Somos is a Greek word named sand. So this is a coincidence that she had this thing. Otherwise, it was only the girl whose name was Annie, orphan Annie, so they call it orphan Annie tumor. Okay, regarding morphology, they have a papillae, a clear-cut papillae with a fibrovascular stalk. This is very important to note that you should see a fibrovascular stalk. So in grave disease, if you go back, sometimes there is a crowding of the epithelium because they are proliferating in a very high speed. They form a pseudopapillae. So sometimes the pathologists get confused with that pseudopapillae with the original papillary carcinoma, right? So if you label it as papillary carcinoma, you had to see the fibrovascular stalk plus nuclear features like ground glass appearance and the inclusion vascular and capsular, sorry, ground glass appearance and fibrovascular stalk. Then you have a single or multiple layer of the cuboidal epithelium. There will be a ground glass appearance of the nuclei. Then you have a nuclear inclusion and nuclear grooving. So these are two important features which you only see in a papillary carcinoma: nuclear grooving and nuclear inclusion. I'll show you how it looks like, right? And definitely a samoma body. So if you go and see this for the first slide, you can see a well demarcated area here. Probably the size must be about 4 or 5 centimeters. This is almost looking normal thyroid tissue. Now, if you see clearly here, uh, you can see some papillary projection even grossly, solid area. This is some cystic area. Probably you will not see anything, but in solid area, you can see some papillary projections. Then you can see of area of hemorrhage also. Yeah, although it's not very much identified here because you see some colloid here. So if you see here, it's a microscopic photomicrograph. These are the papillary processes, and if you see it clearly, it is as a fibrovascular stalk. This one. These are called fibrovascular stalk, which you don't see in grave disease. In grave disease, you just see haphazard arrangement of the epithelial cells, but you will not see a well-formed fibrovascular stalk. So it's a low-power view of the papillary carcinoma. So you can see a well-formed papillaries with fibrovascular stalk. Now you go in high power and you see, yes, this is a high power, and these are the grooves. For example, this is the nucleus, and you can see these grooves, right? So grooves are there. This is orphan NEI, ground glass appearance. Inside the nucleus, we can see a hollow structure like this one. So these are all orphan NEI. This is called, this is grooves. Now, it's difficult to find inclusions, but personally, I see that this probably is an inclusion here. So it's inside the nuclei. And what is actually inclusion? Actually, it's an invagination of the cytoplasm, and the nucleus is cut in such a way that it looks as that the cytoplasm is present inside the nucleus. Although it's false appearance, but while you cut the slide, it looks like that the cytoplasm is going inside the nucleus, right? But it is really very hard to find inclusion. Yes, ground glass appearance and grooving is very much evident in papillary carcinoma. Now, if you see here, this is a samoma body. So it is a pinkish violet color in H&E stain. So this is basically a calcification of the tip of the papillary. So if you cut like this one, transverse cut of the papillae. So you just see the tip of the papillae. For example, this is a tip of the papillae, and you can see this samoma body. So this is almost a diagnostic feature of papillary carcinoma. You see samoma body, you see ground glass appearance. For example, these all four cells are showing ground glass appearance. You might see nuclear grooving in this slide. it's really difficult to see. For example, this one probably have a groove, nuclear groove, and you can see a nuclear invasion. Papillary, definitely you can see fibrovascular stalk. For example, this is a fibrovascular stalk in the papillary in the center. So this is how you diagnose papillary carcinoma. Biological behavior, as I said, they are, it has a good prognosis, but usually papillary carcinoma metastasize towards the lymph node. So in papillary carcinoma person, the first area of metastasis is a surrounding lymph node. So if somebody has a papillary carcinoma of the thyroid, and if you palpate the cervical lymph nodes, they will be positive. Although the lymph nodes are positive, but even then the prognosis is good because this is not a very much fast growing tumor. And if you take out the thyroid gland along with the involved lymph node and you give chemotherapy, the 5-year survival rate still remains very good. Follicular carcinoma, usually they get metastasized through blood vessels, so they can go anywhere in the body, even in the bones, uh, along with the surrounding structure through bone, and even in the brain. I remember one case. I got a brain biopsy from the patient, and when I saw the brain biopsy, I saw follicles, a well-formed thyroid follicle in the brain. And when I did the immunohistochemistry, a marker for this thyroid gland, there are two markers. One is TTF1 and thyroglobulin. So when I perform both of the markers on that tissue, they were positive. So I called the surgeon and I asked him to see his thyroid. So he said yes, he had a history of thyroidectomy and a few years back, and it confirms that yes, this metastasis is from the thyroid gland. So he had a papillary carcinoma of thyroid. Because follicular carcinoma. Because follicular carcinoma, they go through the blood vessels, so they can travel anywhere. It can go to the lung, brain, even liver. So these are the our bone. So these are the common site of metastasis. Now coming to the second tumor, which is follicular carcinoma. Follicular carcinoma is a second common tumor. Again, it has a 5 to 15% of a primary thyroid carcinoma in the body. They are more common in female, 3:1 ratio, and usually they develop at the age of 40 to 60 years of age. Uh, Usually they are seen in the area where there is iodine deficiency, for example, mountainous area like Himalayas or Alps or in China or some African areas. They have a good prognosis as in a papillary carcinoma. So if you see, again, they have a sharply demarcated lesion on gross examination. So if you get the tumor, it has a sharply demarcated area. Yeah, the larger lesion may penetrate. So here, remember, in papillary carcinoma, the diagnostic feature of malignancy was ground glass appearance of the nuclei, nuclear grooving, nuclear what you call inclusions, right, and pneumoma body, well-formed papillaries. In follicular carcinoma, you will not find such a things. In follicular carcinoma, the criteria of malignancy is vascular and capsular invasion. So microscopically, you may see small follicles having a colloid. Some cells have an abundant granular cytoplasm. They called Hurdle cell or oncocytic variant of follicular carcinoma. The important diagnostic feature is capsular invasion and vascular invasion. So for follicular carcinoma, don't go for papillary and ground glass appearance or grooving and inclusions. The only thing which you have to see is follicular carcinoma. In follicular carcinoma is capsular invasion and vascular invasion. So if you see this tumor, these tumors are well demarcated. So this is tumor, well demarcated. You can see some area of hemorrhage here. Mostly they are solid. And if you cut it, you can see follicles, different size of follicles. Some are filled with colloid material, as you see in the normal looking thyroid, right? But the important thing which we are going to see is capsular and vascular invasion, right? So here, again, you can see two tumor. This is definitely a follicular carcinoma, this one. And you can see follicles, some of follicles are filled with colloid. But on the left side, if you see, this is not follicular carcinoma. This is actually a papillary follicular variant of papillary carcinoma. You see the ground glass appearance of the nuclei. Yeah, right. You can see the difference between these two tumors. So these all are having ground glass appearance, but these nuclei are solid. You don't see any ground glass appearance. So if you compare, because both of the picture is in front of you, you can see that these nuclei are different and these nuclei are different. So this is a follicular carcinoma. This is a follicular variant of papillary carcinoma, right? So you have some of the papillary carcinoma which has a follicular variant, but the nuclei will be same. So the diagnostic criteria now is different. Now you see, because although they are forming a follicles, but you see a ground glass appearance, nuclear inclusions on this patient. But in follicular carcinoma, you will look for vascular and capsular invasion. So here, this, as I said, that in carcinoma, not in adenoma. In carcinoma, usually you have a very thick capsule. So as you see here, it's a very thick capsule, right, around the tumor. And here you see that this is a tumor cells which are actually infiltrating inside, are going inside the capsule. So if you see such a way, and they have breached the capsule and they are going inside. So this is called a capsular invasion. Capsule and they are invading it. This is another picture which is showing this thick capsule and the tumor cell has breached this capsule and going here inside. This is called, I'm sorry. Alhamdulillah. On the left side, just to show you the comparison, this is thyroid follicular adenoma, and in which this is a capsule which is very thin. And outside the capsule, you can see normal looking thyroid follicles here. And this is adenoma area in which you can see some of the big follicles, some of the small follicles, some of the follicle which does not even have colloid. But the capsule is very thin. They are not in going inside the capsule, no capsular invasion. So this is follicular adenoma. This is follicular carcinoma. You can compare that how thick this capsule is and how this adenoma is going inside this capsule. So this is minimally invasive follicular carcinoma. Now coming to medullary carcinoma, this is a third type of carcinoma. Medullary carcinoma is a rare tumor. It accounts only for 5% of the total tumors. It has a point mutation of RET proto-oncogene. Remember, in papillary carcinoma is RET PTC gene, right? It's a translocation inversion of RET PTC gene. In medullary carcinoma is a point mutation of only RET proto-oncogene, no PTC, right? It's a neuroendocrine tumor derived from the parafollicular C cell. And you know what is parafollicular C cell? They usually secrete calcitonin, right? In thyroid, calcitonin. And the diagnostic feature is when you do immunohistochemistry for calcitonin in these patients, they become positive. They also secrete serotonin, ACTH, and vasoactive intestinal peptide. So, because these are neuroendocrine tumors, so they start secreting many other hormones also. 70% arise sporadically and are mostly at the age of 40 to 50 years. And remaining 30%, they had uh, neuroendocrine features and they are related to MEN syndrome. What is MEN? It is multiple endocrine neoplasm syndrome, 2A and 2B, and they are usually seen in a younger patient. So what is actually MEN? I'm not going in detail because Dr. Imad is going to take your lecture of adrenal gland. So they actually, these are the tumors of adrenal gland, and they had this is a syndrome having three different tumors. For example, in MEN2A, you have medullary carcinoma number one, then you have pheochromocytoma, and number three, you have parathyroid hyperplasia, hyperplasia of the parathyroid. So this is MEN2A. In MEN2B, you have medullary carcinoma, you have pheochromocytoma, but instead of parathyroid hyperplasia, you have multiple neuromas and Marfan syndrome. So MEN2B as compared to MEN2A has a bad prognosis. So on the whole, definitely medullary carcinoma has a bad prognosis. But if you compare these two, MEN2A and MEN2B, MEN2B has, as compared to A, has a bad prognosis. So morphology, they are large lesion often contain necrosis and hemorrhage, may extend through the capsule. So capsular invasion is there. Macroscopically, they're composed of polygonal to spindle-shaped cells arranged in nest and trabeculae. And the most important thing in this tumor is amyloid deposit are present in the adjacent stroma. So uh, almost this is a diagnostic feature of this one. They had an amyloid deposition in around the tumor. So what is this amyloid? They stain with congruent stain, showing green birefringence on polarization. If you do just see in normal H&E, they look like a pinkish color, but if you polarize the light, it becomes green birefringence. And for confirmation, you do immunohistochemistry for calcitonin, so they show positivity for calcitonin. So this is how it looks like. If you see, you have large polygonal cells. These are large polygonal cells, right? You can see even spindle shaped cells like this one. They are arranged in a group, sheets and trabeculae, and this is all congruent material, pinkish color one. This one, all congruent. So this is H&E stain. So it looks like pinkish in color. But if you do polarization, and how you do the polarization, what you do, you put one lens above the slide and one lens below the slide, and then you turn one of the lens, and it will, as the light become polarized, it will show this color, green birefringence, the same one. You have just polarized the light and it turns into green birefringence. You see the difference. This is normally it looks like this one. As you polarize the light, becomes this green birefringence. So it is this is normal H&E, but if you do the Congo red stain, it becomes red in color. This whole area become red as it's like this one. And if you just polarize the light, it looks like a green birefringence. Clear? So this is a diagnostic feature. In H&E stain, it looks like a pinkish color like this one. For confirmation, you do Congo red stain. Congo red stain is for amyloid. For Congo red stain, it looks like the same it as looking here. It's red in color, little more red. But if you do some polarization, it becomes green birefringence. Coming to the last one, which is anaplastic carcinoma. Anaplastic carcinoma, again, they are rare tumor. They account for only 5% of this. They are bulky mass. They are fast growing. Metastatic rate is very high. At the time when you are diagnosing the tumor might have metastasized to anywhere else. It has a very, very bad prognosis, and the mortality rate is almost 100%. So as I was saying, there are few tumors which are 1%. So one of them is this anaplastic carcinoma. The mean age of this patient is 65 and 70. So, usually it involves the older patient. These patients have a past history of well-differentiated thyroid carcinoma. As I said, the anaplastic carcinoma, they will give you the history that this patient was having probably follicular carcinoma 20 years before, and then the doctor has taken out the thyroid gland, and they have given the chemotherapy and radiotherapy, whatever, and then he was absolutely all right, and suddenly after 20 years, the tumor appears again, and that tumor will be anaplastic. So the tumor cells will be looking in a very, very aggressive way. Morphology, they are composed of highly anaplastic cells. They have large pleomorphic giant cells and multinucleated giant cells. They can have a spindle cells with sarcomatoid appearance, and they have mixed spindle and giant cells area. Immunohistochemical stain, they are positive for epithelial cell, but they will be negative for TTF1 and thyroglobulin. Remember, uh, TTF1 and thyroglobulin, they are the marker for thyroid tumor. But in anaplastic carcinoma, because they have a different behavior, they will not show positivity for TTF1 and thyroglobulin. Remember, they will only show an epithelial marker like CK7. They will be showing positivity for CK7, but they will not show positivity for TTF1 and thyroglobulin. So this is how it looks like. You see, this is one giant cell, a very big cell. You see, a very big cell. This is multinucleated cells. One cell have 4 or 5 nuclei. These are bizarre looking cell having very uh, aggressive looking mitotic. This is mitotic figure, a big mitotic figure. This is another multinucleated giant cells. You have some cells like spindle looking spindle cells like this one, sarcomodoid appearance like this one. So you have in the same slide multiple features. This is another mitotic figure which is not that much bizarre as this one. So, and this is another mitotic figure. So, but they are aggressive in nature, right? So, as I said, in thyroid cancer, uh, pleomorphic pleomorphism and hyperchromasia is not a criteria of malignancy, but in anaplastic carcinoma, they are so aggressive at the time when you were diagnosing the patient. At this time, probably the patient had a metastasis in other part. So this was all about the thyroid neoplasm. If you have any question, you can please ask me. Yes, no questions? Okay, so by this we are almost, I have completed my thyroid part, and probably day after tomorrow, I'll be doing, we'll be starting with the, what you call, diabetes after this one, and inshallah, the last one will be adrenal gland, which Dr. Imad is going to take. So on this weekend, you will be preparing all of the things, and then on next Sunday, we will be discussing the CPC the same time, inshallah, from 10 to 12, right? Thank you very much. Thank you.